Chair, I'm
We are ready. You may
All right.
start now.
My deputation says Norfolk County, where we all live, strive, and grow to prosper. Norfolk General Hospital on West Street, behind a row of trees. 6 museums, Delhi, Port Dover, Bacchus Mill, Port Rowan, Simcoe, Teeterville, and Waterford. I have had the opportunity through Journey in Life to be at every museum. We have a Norfolk County Council office on Governor Simcoe Square, 5 public libraries, courthouse, 5 or more newspapers, 4 high schools, many public schools, theaters, restaurants, shops, community centers, fairgrounds, Norfolk Ride bus service in and out of routes. On a Wednesday, Simcoe Reformer circulates 26,000 newspapers every Wednesday. Norfolk News has published some of my stories and pictures. I have taken the time to find out many things about the museum in the last 3 years, and I have often wondered why we don't have a membership for the Eva Donnelly Brooke Museum, Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum. So that was one of my moments that I would like to have mentioned to you today. The Norfolk History Project for 2018, Promote Norfolk County, Ontario. I'm very interested in bookmarks. Bookmarks are the beginning of many more books to read if they have a bookmark. Family tree sheets, area map where they live. Each child, every high school student, all museums to do their own area and supply bookmarks. And these sheets of very important historic papers. A museum picture top of each bookmark would be just lovely. If they haven't been there, they now have a picture of one. This is going to be a short presentation, and I'd like to thank you to the United Empire Loyalist Organization for acknowledgement for my great-grand-forefathers back to the Revolutionary War of 1777, 1783. James Matthews with a double T and an S, Philip Forrest with a C, James and Durham. I'd also like to say thank you to the Norfolk Historical Society, staff, and volunteers. How often I think I gave them gray hairs, who provided documents and record books in the vault. That dates back to 17 and 1800s for my research. My pleasure to be asked if I would be the gardener of the museum happened this summer, and I so chose to be. I'd also like to say thank you to the Norfolk County who provided a deputation for a Norfolk citizen to voice my views and accepted a 60-page book of ideas regarding the future of Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum and Archives, where we all reside. There are not many buildings in the world named after a lady. I do have paperwork that each counselor probably has in their possession in a folder this week that I did bring in. It's a map of Norfolk County. It also says at the bottom, where do I live in Norfolk County? This is for the children and for the adults who do not know. Circle my area with a colored pencil. This is where I live. Thank you, Norfolk County, for my map. It also shows that you have a tree, a family tree, where it starts with yourself and leads on to your great-grandparents. You could start one yourself, gentlemen, because I've provided one for you in your folder. These come off of a website free of charge, printable, and reusable many times. I certainly wasn't a PowerPoint person today. That's something that I have not learned yet. So you did not see my photograph pictures that I have taken around the area of Norfolk and Water Street. This ends my deputation story, and if there's any questions, I'd like to answer them.
Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
deputation. Mayor Luke, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Barbara, thank you for your deputation and information. I want to ask exactly the same question I did Michelle. The proposal in here is for a 1.5, or two positions, one full-time archivist and a 0.5 part-time curator. Your thoughts on that proposal?
I think that is a great idea to give opportunities to more than one person in a one-person position that needs an extra person to guide them and help them along the way. It is a big project. You're planning only summer months, and which causes a lot of wonderful interest to happen. Advertise and have lots of people on staff to be there. There are lots of volunteers, and I certainly would like to be a volunteer if they need a right-hand person.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you to the chair and everyone.
Council, what do you wish? Mayor Luke? To receive this information? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Sonnenberg. All in favor of receiving the deputation's information? Motion is passed. That then, I believe, would bring us to the staff report. Am I correct?
Thank you, through the chair. In January 2017, the Norfolk Historical Society informed Council that they would be ceasing operations at the Eva Brooke Donnelly Museum and Archives, effective immediately due to financial constraints. This resulted in Council directing staff to explore options for the future operations of this site. This report outlines an option that addresses Council's concern expressed back in July regarding relevance, cost, and volunteerism. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sure we probably have some. Councillor Brunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Melissa. I read this report, and I guess my concern is, I'm on page 27 at the bottom, the Seasonal Community Museum will be open a minimum 360 hours, 60 days to meet the requirements, goes on to say, but are we not going to get more hours out of this? Are we going to put this kind of money into it? Would we not get more hours out of it? Or will the volunteers expand on that?
Through the chair, Councillor Brutton, that is the minimum that's required by the Ministry of Tourism, Sport and Culture to get the CMOG grant. So that was put in there as a guideline. Certainly the archives portion of it will be a full-time endeavor, and with the starting out this museum being seasonal.
But, okay, let me go this way then. The staffing, I assume, you have on page 28, you show $143,000. That's for the 1.5 staffing, correct? Well, will that person be working 40-hour a week, or what would they work? Like, how's that going to shake down for the number of hours you've got it open?
Through the chair, that is for one FTE and one half-time FTE. That person will be on staff 17 and a half hours a week. So the half-time will be 17 and a half hours a week for the full year. And their job will be to develop programming, special tours education, work with the collection, which needs a lot of work, and have the site open a minimum of 360 hours. I anticipate it'll be open at least 120 days the first year. Probably we'll do June through July and August, and maybe in December again.
What's the salary for the archivist? What do you anticipate?
I got the numbers from HR, and right at the moment that I don't have it in front of me, but combined they were these two.
Mr. Baird might be able to answer.
Yeah, the figure you see there, Councillor Brunton, is for the 1.5 FTEs, so that includes the salary and benefit portion. I would estimate the salary to be approximately $70,000 plus a benefit for the full-time archivist.
Okay, now, our other museums have the part-time curators. every one of our museums have a part-time curator, or they have a full-time curator?
Through the chair, each museum has 2 full-time employees, 1 full-time curator and 1 full-time assistant curator.
So is that necessary for all our museums, or could we not have one main curator for all our museums and the rest of the part-time curators for all the rest of the museum, like in every museum? Like, do we need a full-time curator? It sounds to me like we've got all these museums, and the lady mentioned where they are, why we have to have a full-time there, and yet down here where we are, we have 0.5.
Through the chair, in July's report to council, I did suggest a full-time curator, and council chose not to go that way. I would say that our sites are anywhere from 9,000 to 14,000 square feet, and our 2 staff people are programming, project managing, building, administering their budgets, doing tours, education. They have a lot for 2 staff people.
Well, I guess that's what I'm starting to wonder. Like, we have all these museums, and they have 2 full-time people. If one curator, full-time, could oversee all the museums, and then have the assistant curators only.
Through the chair, the challenge would be is that each museum is a community museum, so the focus of each is very different. It's specific to their communities. So those people that work in those sites are very integrated into their communities, meeting the needs of and exhibiting their history and programming to meet their needs. I wouldn't know how they would spread themselves and effectively program and meet the needs of the community with one curator.
Well, I'm assuming the assistant curator has a good handle on each museum that they work in. Do they not?
The assistant curator, I'm sorry, through the chair,
go right
the
ahead.
assistant curator position is an entry-level position. So, they're very new to their positions and are learning their way through. So I wouldn't say that they have the same expertise as a curator.
What's the qualifications? Is that a specific qualification as a curator?
Through the chair, yes. Many of them have a certificate in museum studies or a degree in museum studies or history.
They're all these curators we have, and the assistants are all qualified with those degrees?
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Mr. Chairman, if there aren't any other questions.
There is another question.
Well, when you're ready to receive a motion, I would like to place it.
Okay, I'll come back to you when
All right.
we finish the speakers. Councillor Height, you're on as a speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to staff, you're speaking of the CMOG grant here, and I would assume that lands on the revenue side of things on the sheet that we're looking at. What do you expect that amount to be?
Through the chair, I've been told by the ministry anywhere between 18 and 14,000.
Okay.
Pardon me, did I say 18? I mean 8 to 14,000.
Yeah, because that's what, I'm on the Bacchus Museum Committee, and we were looking at 13,000, but there were several steps to be qualified for that. And do you think that you're going to qualify for it? Because at Bacchus, we've had to actually plan it out, because you can't get there from here. And right now, I'm looking here, we're spending $178,000 to receive $13,000 grant.
Is the question, do I think we'll be successful in getting the CMOG?
What you have here,
Yes, I'm pretty confident.
we receive that on all of our other museums?
Yes, we do.
Okay, excellent. Now, down here underneath that CMOG thing, it also talks about applications for student workers. And do they work for free?
Through the chair, the Young Canada Works program is sometimes matching funds, and there is also a program where they pay the entire salary for the student or intern.
Okay, through the chair. So if it's matching funds, where will you get the funds from if we're spending it all on the upper pay scale rate for our FTEs?
Through the chair, if we didn't have the funding, the money, we wouldn't be going for matching grants.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have no further, do we have any further questions before I come back to Councillor Black? Seeing no further questions, Councillor Black, you were on, please.
Chairman, if we can get a seconder, I'd like to move the recommendation in the report and speak to it.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Mayor Luke has seconded the motion. It's now on the floor.
Well, here we are for another go-round, and I've made lots of comments in the past. And, I guess there's all kinds of different ways you can look at this, and I look at it today, I want to look at it from the historical perspective, and I guess first of all, thank Melissa and Chris and their staff for bringing this forward and spending all the time they have. And above all, I'd like to thank the Norfolk Historical Society for all the work that they've done, you know, on behalf of the county and the community of Simcoe for since amalgamation back to 2001. And I know, and I've seen the sheets, they have injected thousands and thousands of volunteer hours in that facility from both the museum aspect and from the archive aspect. They consist of a huge amount of dedicated individuals, I know, because this council, and I'd like to thank council for allowing me to sit on that board. I've been well aware of Beaverbrook Donnelly Museum for many, many years, but sitting on the board opened my eyes to the value of this, not just the building, but the archives, the artifacts, the Edgar Cantillon paintings. It's invaluable, and it's part of the fabric of the community of Simcoe. And I know Simcoe is always, you know, it has sort of two monikers. It's the Norfolk County hub of activity, and sometimes the people in Simcoe don't really like that. You know, they'd like to be just an ordinary community like Dover and like Delhi. And you know, when I look at the museums in Delhi and Teeterville, the Pioneer Village, the Agricultural Museum in Waterford, the Tobacco Museum in Delhi, and Port Dover Harbor Museum, they're all reflective of their individual communities, just like Melissa said. They support their communities, they support their downtowns, and I am proud and I congratulate my fellow colleagues for supporting those individual community institutions. I think it's very important, and I thank my fellow colleagues for doing that, and I support and have supported in budgets over the last 18 years to put money into those budgets. I think it's important. And I also think it's important that the community of Simcoe be able to maintain their institution. It is the oldest, going back to, I think, 1941. I think the house was built circa 1845. And it was one of the second, I think, post office in Simcoe. Like the first one was Duncan Campbell over at Linwood Arts, and then I think he got the political boot, and it went to Mr. Mulkins, who was the one who built the Beaverbrook Donnelly Museum in 1845, and he had a store. It was like a center of the community. This home and this store and this post office, and eventually that post office ended up over on Peel Street. So, you know, the history of this community in Norfolk County has started right there in that facility and has been operated and promoted by the many volunteers and the programs over the years. It was the only and the Norfolk County Museum. As, you know, for example, it had artifacts all the way across Norfolk County, like the Abigail Becker display, which is, I think, on loan right now in Port Dover, I believe. They've loaned that display out. So, you know, over the years, we had the other museums come on board, and with amalgamation, the other museums weren't at the same level as the Beaverbrook Donnelly Museum because of their years and years of existence. So, they were offered the opportunity to come under the umbrella of Norfolk County, and they jumped at the opportunity. And Everbrook Donnelly didn't. They said, no, we have enough private financial support to take care of ourselves. But over the years, that financial support has diminished to the point where they are at now. And I've always considered Everbrook Donnelly part of the town or the community of Simcoe. I know the mayor used to sit on the committee. And I know that town of Simcoe gave financial support to the programs, along with the building. I know we have two different things going on there. You got the building and you got the programs. So I guess I don't see the Everbrook Donnelly Museum and Archives any differently than any of the other museums, and it should be supported. We are at that point where it needs to be taken into the fold of Norfolk County. And there will be a benefit to everyone. There is an identified need, even if this council may not know it. If you talk to a lot of the staff have said, what do we do with all our archival information? You know, and it can end up being the central repository of all of these important historical documents, including, you know, private groups such as maybe the Norfolk Sports Hall of Recognition or the Norfolk Field Naturalists. There's many groups out there that have historical documents that they don't know what to do with. So it could include those sorts of things. And the archives or the antiquities there also are very important. So I've probably gone on long enough there. You're looking at me funny there, Mr. Chairman. So
I'm still awake.
I think I've got my point across, I hope, to suggest to the other councilors that this is an important institution within Simcoe and all of Norfolk County. It serves both. And I just hope they see that, understand it, value it, and can support this as a benefit to us all. So thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. So you have moved that motion? Am I correct? Do we have a seconder? And Mayor Luke has seconded. And Mayor Luke, you will now speak, please, if you wish.
I won't be that long, I promise. It'll soon be dark, Councillor Black, but that's okay. I can talk just as much as anybody. So I first want to, in support of this, thank Melissa Culver and Chris Baird. Their names are on this report. Michelle Branch said it the best. This report is forward-thinking, and it's financially responsible, she said. This motion, if passed, will allow this facility to continue to be open and accessible to the public. All of our museums in Norfolk are important, including the Everbrook Donnelly Museum. They all play important parts in their respective communities and the county as a whole. Is this solution perfect? I do not know. But I think staff has come back with something, knowing that council was concerned about the costs of 2-point-something FTEs. I think it's a start, Mr. Chair. It's something we can proceed in 2018, and we'll see how it goes. But this will make sure that our archives are accessible to the public. I know there will be volunteers to assist in the programs and the keeping of the archives, and we'll move forward. Thank you.
I have no further speakers. Oh, sorry, I do have another speaker. Councillor Height.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, for me, timing is everything. And even in this motion, you're going to see that we hereby approve the conversion of the museum and archives into the official Norfolk County one. And then the next paragraph, we're going to bring it forward into the capital plan and into the levy-supported operating budget. So this is how we end up in trouble, Mr. Chair. Right? We're writing checks, and then when we get our checkbook back, we wonder where the savings accounts went. Okay? The artifacts, there's no arguing they're priceless. But are we going to continue down the same path that we have been for the last 15 years. Volunteers were declining, memberships are declining, the support is declining. The only thing that won't be declining is the money we're going to put into it. 2% increases every year for salaries. We'll need to add 50,000 every year for renovations and upgrades to this building. And it is a beautiful building, don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful home in Simcoe. But, Mr. Chair, our 2016 financial statements show we were negative $3 million in the levy. 4% increase is what should have went on the taxpayer's bill that year for us to break even. Ouch. That won't go over well. It'll go over less well than us putting this on hold while we come up with a new plan. And for me, Mr. Chair, we need a new plan. And Councillor Brunton touched on it earlier. We have a lot of these little museums, and we're doing the same thing over and over again. People, they get tired of the same thing. I know there's some new programs and things, but overall, we need some oomph. We need some wow factor in these museums. And to do that, I think we need a whole new plan. But one of the problems I have moving forward with this is obviously the elephant in the room is the RAB building. Council has a $38 million budget we're dealing with 2 days from now, and we don't know what's happening with one of our administration buildings. That could be the next archival center. That could take out the art center as well. And yeah, you lose some historic buildings to public or private ownership, but we talk about centralization. We heard that word today. We could have something new. Just with the senior center, like there's just something not here. This is just, for me, it's the same old, Mr. Chair, and I won't support it. Thank you.
Thank you. You certainly are entitled to your opinion. Thank you very much for sharing that. There's nothing wrong with it. Councillor Brunton.
Well, just in short, a mistake was made in 2001. We should have, at that time, put the Eva Brooke Downey Museum right in with all the other museums and said, we're going to fund it. That's when it should. That's what should have happened. But I guess at the time, and I certainly wasn't involved, but they wanted to go their separate way, and I guess it was a mistake. And here we are today, and I look at it like it's a very important part of our community, and I support what they're trying to do here. But I will agree, down the line, we have to look at all these curators, all these assistant curators. Something just don't add up to me that we have to have all of that for every museum. It doesn't make sense to me. So, anyways, I support the resolution on the table, and let's get on with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further speakers. So the motion is, and everybody knows what the motion is, it's the recommendation contained within the report. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much for your attendance. Where are we going on, Madam Clerk? Other business. We're on the topic of other business. Do you wish to leave before you go ahead, and we'll break here for a moment while you make your way out. And thank you very much for coming. Okay, then, we will now begin other business. And we'll start with you. Mr. Johnson, do you have other business for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not have any other business other than I am looking forward to the next 2 days of capital budget deliberations. Thank you very much.
Are you on drugs? Mr. Y.
I share in my co-workers' excitement for the next couple of days.
You guys don't look excited to me. Mr. Baird. Mr. County Manager.
Nothing at this time.
Boys, we're doing all right. Miss Deputy Clerk.
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Cridlin.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
We're just a bunch of nothings, aren't we? Ms. Miranda.
Nothing either, thank you.
I'm not about to wreck the staff streak.
Okay. Let me tell you, I'm going to go to a place where we're going to change all of this. Councillor Height, would you like to bring us other business?
I only have 13 things,
That's
Mr.
okay.
Chair. No, I'm kidding. I was wondering, I heard that the Teeterville Hall or something is going to be taken over by the county. Is that something, Mr. Baird, you could talk to? And will we require another $170-some thousand to run that one as well?
Through the chair, the county already owns the Teeterville Hall. The media did not capture that in their story. It currently resides under Mr. Krivlin's portfolio, and because of the nature of his hall review, and we saw it as a nice fit to simply transfer the operation and the care of that over to Heritage and Culture. There's no cost implication with doing that.
Excellent, Mr. Chair, because I have a bit of an issue. A week ago or so, I was over at the Houghton Agricultural Society, and the president stepped down. When he did so, the board stepped down. And if nobody comes up to help out with volunteers, I'm not sure how the process works with Mr. Cridlin taking over the Houghton Town Hall, because that's what's going to happen out there. I can tell you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Stanley McIntyre has been looking after that facility since 1962.
Wow.
1962. I couldn't believe it, and they're just putting a fresh paint job on it, so if they hand it over to volunteers or the county, it looks pretty spiffy inside and out. And yeah, I was very disappointed to hear about that. And it's kind of the way things are. It's just volunteers are dropping, and younger families are busy. They don't want to pick up the spots anymore. And, you know, the hall, I guess it's been rented out anywhere between 70 to 40 times per year. Now, I'm not sure how we go about the process of taking over it. I need some help on that one.
Mayor Luke, would you like to help?
If I
Councillor
may,
Height?
I don't know if I can help. Councillor Height is correct in what he has just told us, and certainly when I was at the Houghton Fair opening in front of everyone, I certainly recognized and congratulated Mr. McIntyre. That's Stan, I believe? Yeah, Stan, great guy. 55 years, and some people are actually upset that he was stepping down after 55 years. So we had a good chat for a while, and Mr. Chair, I can only say at this time that I suggested to Stan that if and when he retires and if the board folds, then I think it would be a worthwhile conversation for someone to contact staff in this council to see what can be done, because that's a pretty important piece of real estate with a cenotaph there, a very nice community hall that is well used, and we don't have much else out in that specific area of the county nearby. So I'm actually waiting to hear from Mr. McIntyre, and I wasn't aware that what you have said has transpired, but I'm not surprised. So I certainly gave him my card and told him when that time comes to contact myself or you, Councillor Height, and we go from there. But at this moment, I don't know anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
Councillor
Mr. Chair,
Height,
I was asked to attend a town hall meeting when he made his announcements on his retirement, and so did the rest of the board. They weren't sure where things were going to go, and hoping some of the membership would step up. No one did at that particular meeting, but there were some good questions asked, so possibly maybe people would take over some things. Some of the issues were, like some of the ladies that were inquiring about it were that they don't maintain buildings. They could rent out a hall and make sure it's clean, but they're probably not going to hop on that lawnmower and cut that up like Mr. McIntyre has, Mr. Chair. So that's just one to keep in the back of your heads. By the end of the year, I believe it'll have to be dealt with. And then my second and last item, Mr. Chair, is the capital plan tomorrow. I'm not sure if I even need to attend.
Yes, you do.
For Mr. Chair, I went over and I added up the things in my ward, and out of the $38 million budget, I have $400,000 worth of stuff, and $100,000 of it's for a study. No wonder Mr. Oliver isn't going to be here. the West is getting nothing. I've gone over 3 budgets, the last 3 that I've sat on, and out of $98 million that Norfolk County has spent in capital projects, I've received, what was it, less than 6%. I think it was even way less than that. I forget off the top of my head. I was so frustrated when I read those numbers. Is there no rhyme or reason on how money gets divided up? Like, I know my constituents, they're upset that we never seem to get anything out here. They feel that Simcoe gets the gold mine and we get the shaft. And from the numbers that I run through, I don't see that it's any different. How do these projects get divvied up that we're paying all this money and we don't actually get any work done? Maybe somebody in finance could answer that? Somebody somewhere can answer that? Because I'm struggling going back to my residents and telling them, well, I got next to nothing.
I think before I go to James, I'll make this comment. I think if you ask every resident in their staff or in their ward, they will say the same thing. We never get anything. Mr. Johnson. But obviously, they must get something because we spend a lot of money. Go ahead, Mr. Johnson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From a finance perspective, obviously our job is to accumulate all the projects through the different divisions and departments on what they feel is a priority for Norfolk County as a whole. And then we put it together and we present it. Now, as far as individual projects through individual departments on their methodology of what's a priority and what's not, I'd have to defer to those general managers.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Just wait a minute. County Manager, do you wish to respond or in any way? Or? And I'm coming back to you, Councillor Height.
There is an art and a science to municipal management, but the single most important attribute we can have is staff neutrality, is not to favor either directly an elected official or disfavor one, or to favor one area of the county over another. The majority of our spending at the end of the day is in the public works area, and Public Works has a system for identifying those infrastructure projects and challenges and opportunities that are in most serious disrepair, and then within that matrix there's a sort of a safety analysis. And in any given year, done properly, those projects will fall where they may. It is hypothetically possible to have a year where 100% of the spending is in Simcoe or 100% is in Waterford, any one of the wards. Usually it falls out where it falls out, and I appreciate that at any point in time it can look, or it could be, from a statistical perspective, unfair to any one given area. The important thing is to look at over a period of time, to take a sample size over a period of years and look and see whether there's a substantive difference in the quality of the roads or the community centers or whatever it happens to be you're looking at. I can tell you, admittedly, I've only been here half a year, but in that time, I have not seen any conscious, concerted effort by a single member of this staff to prioritize one given area over another. I simply haven't. It helps that, amongst other things, you have a team of dedicated professionals, a number of whom are quite new to the area and frankly have no particular reason to have loyalty or favoritism to one part or another. If you wish to hear from Ms. Robinson as to the specific as to how they rank, I'm sure she can give you the technical explanation, but the bottom line is, or the high-level answer, is that we look at the county resources that are in most serious disrepair and or that provide safety challenges, and that's where we recommend we spend our money first, and that will fall wherever it happens to fall. And this year, I'm certain, I have no reason to doubt your mathematics, Councillor Height, whatsoever, but that would appear to be where the mathematics fell this year.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'm certainly not saying staff's doing some clandestine effort to keep the West from having anything. I'm just saying that sometimes maybe they could look at things a little differently. One of the problems I have as a councillor is that some of the budget items that we discuss all year, they go through this magical machine called SLT. And during this phase where they go through that SLT machine, projects get dropped, moved, switched around, and the councillor of the ward doesn't know. And you know yourself, Mr. Chair, all of a sudden you were looking for a project to move ahead and it disappears into the SLT machine with no indication to the councillor that these were moved. Well, what if the councillor was receiving 50 phone calls a day to get this project done, and he must have to go through an entire budget book or 2 or 3 months worth of stuff to find out what happened to that? There should be a list, and it should be provided to council. So I'd like to update the people in my ward. And so be it. If we get 0 and Simcoe gets 100% that year, that's just how it goes. But it would be nice to be updated to the SLT magic machine right now. Because right now, we don't know if it comes off or drops off, similar to the sidewalk that we discussed tonight. It could have been there 3 years ago, got dropped by SLT, and nobody would know any better. That's not how I like to see things move ahead. I'm responsible to the people in my ward, and to not get that information prevents me from being that way. Right? And that's where I'm getting at with this, Mr. Chair. It's the missing stuff. All right? Thank you.
Okay. Did I get you, Councillor Geisens? Is that everybody? Oh,
To say.
okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You said something a little while ago that everybody gets their share. Well, I can honestly say we don't get the same share that everybody does, and if you want to, we can debate that for a long, long time. I was told that we were going to get a bridge on 45. No bridge. A water tower about 5 or 6 years ago in Cortland. No tower. Now we're talking about putting in pumps and changing that, and the firefighters have some problem with that because when they have to hook up to a fire hydrant with pumps, the pressure isn't great at the beginning. The other thing, about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, when we went through the same thing in Cortland, they wanted to put new asphalt on the community center. There, I said, no, we don't need that, but we need some gravel behind it to fill out that hole, because when there's a rainfall, we have a swimming pool. We also need some additional parking, because what's going to happen this summer, most of the parking, when there's something going on in Cortland, they're parked along the road. That road is going to be torn up. So where are we going to park? So I'm hoping that somebody somewhere will either look at putting some gravel in there and fixing up the back end of that parking lot with some gravel or whatever we need to do. I don't know what it's going to cost, but I'd certainly like to see that happen. Whether it's $10,000 or $15,000, that's what I'm asking for, and eventually that needs to be paved. You look at what's being built in Cortland, and we have to, people saying, well, we're begging. And I said, well, I'm doing the best that I can, and we're not getting there. So theoretically, we need to have a look at this. You know, we talk about a hub, and I don't have a problem, but maybe in Cortland, we need a hub there for industrial people who want to grow and everything like that. And you're going to see more of it. There's more people because it's the closest to the 401 anywhere else in Norfolk. So tomorrow's not going to be a very nice day for me, and I'm going to tell you, I'm not very happy with what I've read in this thing. You know when I'm going to get my bridge? Maybe when after you bury me. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, guess that brings it to me, if I remember correctly. Have I forgotten you, Councillor Sonnenberg? Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I don't want, you see, I listen to these guys over here, and I know you guys don't count. I was giving them something, and now you want to take it away already. Councillor Sonnenberg, seriously.
Thank you. And the list goes on. Waterford's been looking for a sewage treatment plant for 4 years. and a ambulance bay for 4 years. Neither one is showing any signs of happening. But that's, never mind. Pumpkin Fest. We all attended Pumpkin Fest. It was only, I would say, moderately successful this year. Festivals and fairs all hinge on good weather. You know, it looked like there was a lot of people along the parade route, but I've seen 3 times that many. The car show that the Lions put on Sunday afternoon, I'd say there was probably a third of the exhibits that there usually is. And the biggest downer was the vandalism. The big pumpkin tree that everybody sees on all the brochures and everybody's seen when they visit Pumpkin Fest weekend was destroyed by vandals on Saturday night. Threw every pumpkin off of that tower onto the ground and just made a heck of a mess, to put it bluntly. It's unfortunate that that happens. It happens everywhere. We're all aware of it, but it sure manifested itself greatly at Pumpkin Fest when you destroy a huge exhibit like that. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I thought things went very well at your Pumpkin Fest, and your display was lovely, and there was plenty of decorations up, and I'm sorry that it had to end in such a negative tone. Mayor Luke, would you like to
I'll be quick.
put something
as
more
always.
positive?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Everyone got this note from the Norfolk County Public Library. Norfolk remembers Passchendaele Open House Sunday, November the 5th. I know it's a couple weeks away, 3 weeks Sunday. And the newest book, Letters Home, will be launched. And also the unveiling of 2 commemorative quilts, which I have seen. And they are spectacular. If council has a chance or anyone else to come out and support this, there's good things going on in Norfolk as usual. Mr. Chair, the other thing I wanted to mention was a press media release that Mr. Baird issued this morning. Mr. Baird, do you have that with you? I just assume you would talk about that, but if you don't, you can either borrow mine or I will speak. But if you have it, I would like you to share the good news. We need to share good news when we have good news. And if he has that, Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like him just to highlight what I think is an excellent report.
Thank you, Mayor Luke, through the chair. Mayor Luke's referring to a media release that we issued this morning, and it relates to the construction boom continues in Norfolk County. That's the title. We just concluded the 3rd quarter of our building and development process. Some of the highlights, I mentioned last week that you would be getting this information, but I think there's pretty astounding figures. The total value of building permits and construction value is $114 million. The same time last year, which was our best year ever, was $71 million. So it's over $40 million in excess of that benchmark. We're already at 323 new homes in the county. We expect to exceed 400 by the end of the year. It's not just residential. I think what's really incredible is the agricultural sector, and many of you know when you drive through your wards, you can see the scale of development in the agricultural sector, what's going on. That's up 176%, over $17 million again so far. We know there's lots more coming up. Our industrial is up 165% to $15 million. That's obviously credited to Toyotetsu and Titan Trailers, huge projects. Commercial and institutional as well, up considerably rather. We've also used the media release to thank council. Staff obviously thanks you because you've provided additional resources to help us deal with the uptick in activity. But it's also Brian Bunting, the president of Prominent Homes and a former president of the local Home Builders Association. He's recognized that. He's consulted with the other builders in the area, and they're all really pleased with the turnaround, our ability to issue permits within the 10 business days, and just to generally improve that process when they come through the 2nd floor of the Robinson and Min building to get their permits. So I would leave it at that. we imagine there'll probably be some additional stories that might come out of that, but we thought it was important for you to have that information. Sometimes when I started this job in 2003, we just surpassed 100 homes a year, so we're doing 4 times that. It's really astounding, for sure. It's a true team effort, and we've commended all our staff for their involvement there. So, yeah, with that, I'm glad to answer any questions. Thank you, Mayor Luke, for raising that, but we do expect there'll be more to report, certainly year-end figures as well.
Mr. Mayor.
Well, I appreciate the media release. In 2015 and 2016 and 2017 now, we have exceeded 100 million in building permit value, and I will predict, but nobody knows, we could hit 125, 130 million this year. Don't know what the next 3 months bring. And I would predict, nobody can say next year's going to be better, but I believe we'll top the 100 million again next year because we continue to do this. It has not leveled off yet. And I think the fact that we previously this year approved, Mr. Chair, the hiring of 4 people for engineering and planning have shown that we have confidence in the growth in this county, and we're ready to meet the demands that are placed on our staff. So I think we're in pretty good shape here as far as future growth. Thank you.
Mr. Councillor Sonnenberg on this issue?
Yes, on this issue, I can say that I contributed to this over 100 million in permits. It cost me $1,850 for a permit to put up my accessory building. Thank you.
Councillor Black.
Yeah, I might as well start by thanking Councillor Sonnenberg for providing the float and the Pumpkin Fest Parade. It was a good day. I thought maybe the numbers were down, but Harold did an excellent job driving. Didn't have his tractor this time, so it wasn't quite as jerky, and it had a beautiful float there. It was nice and safe for all the old guys on board, so it wouldn't fall off. And I always have a great time, communicating with the people on the side of the road and lots of people we know. So whether the numbers were down or not, I think everybody had a great time, so it was much appreciated. Secondly, I thought maybe the mayor would have mentioned it, but we were at Venture Norfolk, and the mayor, myself, Councillor Brunton, I think Councillor Columbus, and was Councillor Columbus there? Thought he was. What? It's you guys. You're worse than I am. Anyway, there was a good representation. The county manager was there, and some staff members from economic development, and we were there for their annual report at the Nixon brewing facility. So we got a chance to see what's happening there, and they provide an excellent service in trying to get those struggling businesses up and going, small business. So they're successful in what they do. So that was great. And lastly, I'd like to thank the mayor for sending this out about the mobile spay-neuter clinics. And I know you couldn't attend, so I did go out on Sunday, and it's very interesting to see. And some of our money is going towards this that we've approved. And it is a mobile trailer unit that was donated by a company. I've forgotten the name of the company. It's in here somewhere. Anyway, they donated this vehicle, and I would think it's like $100,000-$200,000 plus all of the gear to deal with spaying and neutering, mostly cats, I believe. So when I went out there, they actually showed me the whole process, like sort of the post-op, pre-op, and operating. They had a qualified veterinarian, and this is owned by the Welland and District SPCA, and it travels all over the place. So they took me into the operating room to see what happens to the cats. They did 42 that day. And I think it was held out at Gene Bistrix and his partner Katie Metcalf's property out on the 8th, just down from Councillor Brunton. And it was very good of them to offer that. And had service on their property, and Katie told me they've done something like 500 or 600 cats in Norfolk County to date. It's kind of phenomenal. So I think this really shows me that our money is really being put to good use, and we're being helped by other areas like the Welland District SPCA and private donations that contribute to providing this facility. I think you sent this around to everybody, didn't you? So, yeah, so everybody would have this and have some of the information. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like on your behalf to thank staff for advancing local government today. I think that, oh, sorry, Councilor Brunton, missed you. No, I'll stop here. You go ahead. You go right ahead. We're not going to go until we ring the bell for adjournment.
Okay. First of all, last week, Councillor Oliver asked about regarding when Mr. Tice was coming back as we're going through for the OMB hearing. What was the date of that?
Please.
My calendar is coming up. I believe it is November 21st. I'm just going to confirm that for you. Steph, is that? Yeah, November 21st.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking, there's an email that all of council have received, and it's regarding procedural order for the upcoming hearing. And I'm just wondering, there's a bunch of key dates, and I'm wondering if council will review them dates, and they go right up to the January 8th hearing start date. But I wonder if that poses any kind of problem. I guess I could talk to Councillor Oliver when he returns and go over this list with him. But they're concerned about the appellant county ministry witness list. And I don't know if Councillor Oliver wanted more input in that, but I will check with him and perhaps bring it up next week. Okay. My second one is I've had an email, and maybe some of you also received it, regarding insurance policies for ice rental. Is that becoming a standard item? Like, when did we start that?
Could answer that?
I can't tell you what year Norfolk County started doing that, but I'm hoping it's been years, if not decades. Certainly this is common practice throughout Ontario. When members of the public rent our facilities, we have a policy, which at some point in time this council endorsed, I can't tell you when, but that requires those who rent to pay for private insurance. You can typically get coverage for a event for about $75. And yes, that is standard operating procedure. You require at least $2 million in insurance coverage. That is under review, and that may be an inadequate amount. But that is our policy at present and has been for certainly much longer than I've been employed here.
Yeah, I'm not aware, like I know there's different groups and organizations, I'm sure like junior hockey clubs, but there's people that rent the ice for an hour for public skating or play shinny for an hour, and we're asking them to get insurance?
Correct.
I would think that's going to deter a lot of people from doing that. Like, do we not have insurance of our own on our arenas?
I don't want to publicly give you legal advice. I can tell you that it is standard practice in the province of Ontario for those that own public facilities to require those that rent them to pay for private contracts of insurance. And if you don't do that, self-evidently, the amount of insurance, the cost of the insurance to the county would rise astronomically.
Well, have we been doing that all along here? Because it sounds to me like it's new to some groups.
I can't tell you what year we began doing that. I hope this county has been doing that for years, if not decades. But that has been the routine practice elsewhere in Ontario for longer than I've been a lawyer, which is at least 15 years. Routine everywhere throughout the province.
Well, I guess I'm not aware of it, and I've rented the arena, so I guess I guess we'll have to look into it and find out what these groups are doing. I know there's all kinds of individuals that rent an hour once a week or whatever, and
it's a major cost in minor hockey, et cetera, for insurance. That's the reality in which they operate.
I realize minor hockey, but they have a different, they rent many hours of ice. I'm talking about groups that rent them once a week, or once a month, whatever that may be. And we have never done that I'm aware of.
I hope we've done it for years, but certainly we've been doing it since that policy